Welcome to the Great Basin Smoke Dispersion Briefing for Friday, January 29th. Over the last 14 days, we've seen precipitation significant at times over western areas of the Great Basin and also further east. You can see from the percent of normal over the last 2 weeks, we've seen above normal precipitation over the southern half of the Great Basin. However, largely, much of this precip fell within the last week, and we've had a very significant storm over the Sierra into western Nevada, bringing snowfall totals what we haven't seen in the last few years. Looking at new snow over the last 72 hours, again, you can see the heaviest precipitation, which was over several feet up in the Sierra. Some areas got over 6 or 7 feet of snow. Many areas got 3 to 5 feet of snow. So very, very heavy snow up in the Sierra, and even down into western Nevada, down into the valleys. Many areas saw over 6 to 12 inches over the last few days. Further north, we have seen some new snowfall up across parts of central Idaho, generally 6 inches or more in some of these areas, with some areas over a foot. And then we have seen some lighter precipitation over in the higher terrain of Utah, but we will see additional precipitation today. Even with these impressive snow totals, you can see, looking at the snowpack, we're still below normal for the time of year over much of Nevada and Utah into southern Idaho. We do have some areas that are near normal now over parts of northern Nevada and still near normal up into central Idaho. But again, with the impressive snow totals, the fact that we're still below normal shows how much in a deficit we were with regard to snowpack. The satellite image from this morning shows this cold trough of low pressure along the west coast, which will continue moving eastward across the Great Basin over the next day or so, pushing that precipitation across the area and then eventually east into the Rockies. Looking at our weather map for later today, that area of low pressure swings further east into the eastern side of the Great Basin by later today, so we will continue to see snow showers this morning over many areas of the Great Basin, and that will eventually push further east over eastern areas later today. We're even seeing some rain and even some snowfall down into southern Nevada and southwest Utah in areas above about 4,000 or 4,500 feet. Winds are still pretty breezy across central areas of the Great Basin, so dispersion will remain good in those areas, and then poor further north where winds are lighter. Looking at those transport winds, you can see the gusty winds over much of Nevada into Utah and the Arizona Strip, most gusts in the 30s with some gusts in the 40s, especially in the higher terrain. And then up into central Idaho is where we're seeing our lighter winds and lower mixing heights with poor dispersion. As we move into Saturday, we do have a brief ridging of high pressure moving over the Great Basin, giving us a day or two of quiet weather across the region. So we will again see lighter winds. We could see some areas of fog, which will impact visibility, especially with the amount of moisture and snowfall we have across many areas of the Great Basin. That's a likely possibility. But you can see the next storm off the west coast, and that will impact us early next week. So over the weekend, we are expecting poor dispersion under those lighter winds and lower mixing heights. You can see on Saturday, generally light winds in many areas that will see gusty winds today. We will see winds start to pick up in advance of this next system, possibly over far northwest Nevada, but really many areas of the Great Basin, with the exception of some of the higher terrain in areas in the east, will see lighter wind flow. Also, mixing heights will remain on the lower side. As you move into Sunday, that ridge of high pressure moves a little bit further east, so we're getting a little bit more influence from that trough off the west coast, with a slight increase in winds along the west side and cloud cover. Otherwise, we're looking at poor dispersion again on Sunday. Most wind gusts, again, will start picking up in the northern and western areas on Sunday in advance of that next trough, with much lighter winds across Utah. So we will see poor mixing heights really in most areas on Sunday with poor dispersion. Looking at the forecast clearing index for the next few days for Utah, you can see with those gustier winds today, obviously high clearing indices in many areas, and then we see those clearing indices drop on Saturday and then especially on Sunday as those winds taper off. Looking at the 3-day amount of precipitation, which takes us through Monday morning, which is before the next storm, you can see many areas of the Great Basin will be seeing additional precipitation. Today, as that trough moves through, the heaviest amounts will be over the eastern half to 2/3 of the region, where we will see generally 6 to 12 inches of snow in some areas in the higher terrain, with certainly lesser amounts in the lower valleys. As we move into Monday, that next storm system really starts to approach, so we will see clouds increase later on Monday with some precipitation up north. So as those winds increase, dispersion will be certainly much better across Nevada into western Utah. On Tuesday is when we really start to see that precipitation move across the Great Basin. So again, another significant storm, certainly not what we've experienced this week, but we will see some additional snowfall both in the higher terrain and down into the valley floors over the northern 2/3 of the Great Basin. As that trough moves through, we will see good dispersion region-wide. On Wednesday, that area of low pressure now moves well to the east over the Rockies. So we will see breezy northerly cool flow behind that area of low pressure. So again, another good day for dispersion with precipitation mainly in the eastern area, and that will be exiting as we move through the day on Wednesday and into Thursday. On Thursday, we do have that area of low pressure that's now well to the east, but with that northerly flow, we will see cold areas of low pressure drop down from the north and clip mainly northern and eastern areas of the Great Basin, both the middle of next week and next weekend. We'll start to see some drier conditions in far western areas, but again, some of those cold storms will bring showers to mainly Idaho, Utah, and Wyoming, both the middle and late portion of next week. Dispersion will remain good with that breezy northerly flow going through next week. So looking at the precipitation, this takes us from Monday afternoon through Wednesday afternoon. So with that next storm moving through, you can see the precipitation across the Great Basin. Again, most areas will see at least some precipitation with the heaviest amounts, again in the Sierra, but also in some of the higher terrain of Utah, but not as heavy as what we saw with these last few days of storms moving through. The 8 to 14 day outlook taking us into the first and second week of February shows colder conditions with those troughs of low pressure dropping down from the north, so much colder temperatures, and also drier conditions over the western side of the basin, and that precipitation with those backdoor cold fronts impacting mainly Idaho, Wyoming, and Utah. We will, it looks like, see possibly a drier pattern re-emerging for later in February. That concludes our webcast for today. Check back on Monday for the latest updates.